Welcome back, America. If you were watching Just the News and you saw the announcement that President Trump is indeed going to declare a national emergency and use the military to help clear out this country of the more than 10 million illegal aliens that are on the ground right now, he was actually responding to an idea that our next guest really articulated so well. He's the president of Judicial Watch and the author of one of my new favorite books, Rights and Freedoms in Peril. He's our good friend, Tom Fitton. Tom, welcome back to the show.
Hey, John. Hey, Amanda. How are you both?
We are great. Congratulations on the book. Congratulations on the idea that the president was responding to your idea. I think this idea is getting a lot of traction. I know there's some legal nuances that have to be worked through, but the idea that the military could be activated for a disaster if it's a hurricane actually holds true if the disaster is illegal immigration, right?
Yeah, and I kind of was riffing off a Wall Street Journal story that essentially said what I said in the tweet, but of course they characterized it in a much more anti-Trump way. Again, this is a promise he has made and a promise he plans to keep. And I'm glad, he used this Truth Social post I made to announce to the world, yes, he is going to engage in mass deportation. Of course, it makes sense that when you have an invasion, you reverse the invasion through the use of military assets. And now, does it mean you're going to have troops on the streets? Probably not. But it does mean there are all sorts of military facilities and support and personnel that can be used to support a mass deportation effort. And it's got to be done. I mean, you don't have 10 to 12 million, 15 million people come across the border in 4 years and just pretend that it's all perfect and appropriate. They have to go home, and they have to go home immediately.
Yeah.
So, Tom, if they are going to be protected in sanctuary cities like Los Angeles, who just solidified their status as a sanctuary city, so that's going to prohibit any city resources or personnel from being used for any type of deportation effort. When you have these places that are available to illegal immigrants, and the choice for an illegal immigrant is to either go back home or go to these cities are going to get overrun with more illegal immigration. And it kind of seems like if you don't have enough people in these cities who are outraged about it, at that point, maybe you will.
Yeah, and to the degree these cities or these state governors want to thwart law enforcement and obstruct justice and aid and abet illegal aliens continuing to remain in the United States, there can be court action or criminal prosecutions in more extreme circumstances. Should be initiated by the Trump Justice Department if push came to shove. And, it's one thing for a city to, say, well, we don't want to play with the feds. It's another thing to obstruct the effort by the federal government to enforce the law and protect the border and protect the country.
Yeah. Is there a component here, Tom, where Congress can back up the president and say, listen, federal funds are going to be tied to your ability to help get rid of these illegal aliens and put their federal funding at jeopardy? Might that create some leverage that would change these cities' minds?
Yeah, there's all sorts of leverage. You can have the funding leverage, or you could pass a federal law prohibiting
Great point.
Localities from aiding and abetting illegal aliens and requiring or giving police departments, because I do think the law also rejects the notion that you can interfere with state officials working with federal officials to enforce immigration. So there's a federalism component, but on the other hand, federalism can't be used by states to overturn federal law, to thwart and obstruct federal law. That's what the Constitution makes clear.
Good point. Yeah.
Tom, I want to ask you about some of President Trump's nominees. Well, I guess the body as a whole, because the method right now, the strategy seems to be flooding the zone. I mean, it's one after another, after another, after another, and Democrats get their hair on fire over one, and then there's another announcement. When it comes to confirmation in the Senate, who are the ones who you think are going to have the roughest road? And not to place too much inference here, but what does it mean that they're going to have a rough road? What does it mean to have opposition?
Well, is there going to be a nominee who loses in the Senate and doesn't get confirmed? I don't think so. At least none of the nominees thus far. Now, is there something that a nominee has in their background that might warrant them pulling out? Of course, that's always a possibility. But obviously, the big focus has been on Matt Gaetz. I'm not aware of anything new that would prevent him from being the Attorney General. I think the Senate opposition is overstated, and when the votes are counted, he's going to pass. And if I were President Trump, I would push hard on accelerating the confirmation process and making sure his team is in place by Inauguration Day. And because to me, we get focused on these confirmation processes and these confirmation hearings, which in many ways are just designed to keep good people out of government, not really help the Senate. It's just a vehicle for the left to destroy conservatives. But this is just the beginning. We've got to get bills passed and reforms passed out of this Senate. So it's to me, this ought to be just in essence, not a rubber stamp, but an examination of the records in a way that give the Senate comfort that they have someone who can credibly run the agencies. And the president, in my view, generally deserves his team, absent something extraordinary or objectionable. And I don't see any of these nominees failing by any of the traditional standards of Washington. I could see them failing because of left-wing smears and such. But at this point, I think you should bet on Trump getting his team.
Interesting. One of the things that we're reminded, we've had this battle that it's Trump against the other forces, it's the left against the right. But your book reminded us that this is really a once-in-a-generation fight to protect rights and freedoms that are in the greatest peril that they've been in any time since you and I have been alive, Tom and Amanda. Why is it so important that these agencies have accountability and shrinkage to protect our rights? There's a direct line between the size of government and the threat to our rights, right?
Well, I mean, by way of an example, you had the Department of Homeland Security create a new agency, right? And was in response to Russia, designed to protect us from foreign threats to our elections. And what did they spend most of their time doing at that agency? Both at the end of the Trump administration, where you had anti-Trump deep staters running it, and through the Biden administration, thinking of ways to get American citizens censored who had concerns about election issues.
Yeah.
So when you have government getting bigger, it almost always runs into and tramples upon the rights of American citizens, especially when you have government run by leftists who really have contempt for the civil rights of Americans. So we've had lawfare, censorship, an invasion that would destroy our sovereignty and harm Americans in ways that are bloody and terrible. We have rampaging inflation as a result of the less desperate effort to fund itself by looting the Treasury. And, you name it, you've got these threats that the left is directing to our institutions that protect our rights and freedoms, like the Supreme Court, like the basic rule of law issues, like election integrity. And, Congress has got to pass strong election integrity laws, voter ID, citizenship verification, shut down the censorship, secure the border, you name it. There's a lot to be done. This is why I think, let's not get distracted by cabinet picks in the sense that the Senate, this is just one modest thing they have to do to help Trump save the republic.
Yeah. Crawl, walk, run really fast. That's really what the American people are demanding. Tom, congratulations on this book. You draw that very important line between from the size of government to the intrusion on our rights. It's brilliant, folks. Go get it. Rights and Freedoms in Peril. It's a great read. I just finished reading it the other day. All right. Thanks for joining.